भाई मैं तो कहता हूँ कि आपका जिस्म मेरी मर्जी नहीं है भाई। आप उसमें चाहे टैटूज कराएं, जो पहने, लाइने, एब्रावल हक सुने, जो करना है आपको करें, ठीक है। मेरी मर्जी नहीं है भाई। आखिरत में मुझे नहीं पकड़ा जाएगा भाई, ये तो ब्लू मौलवी साहब ने उनकी मर्जी से हुआ है।
I'm the first one to speak up about actual issues that exist in Pakistan. But you can't say I want to talk about the freedom of women, something that already exists in so much abundance. I love being in public spaces as long as my guard, my husband, my father, my son are forming a circle around me at all times so I don't get, my buttocks pinched. I enjoy that.
Those were the voices of Blue Malvi Saab and Lena Auntie, animoji characters created by Swineryy. For those of you who don't know Swineryy, she's an Instagram creator, social media star, and comedian from Pakistan who went viral for a video she posted in 2018 of an animoji pig wondering, why am I haram? Why am I forbidden? As for Swineryy's real name, we won't be revealing that because, well, we actually don't know her real name. My name is Shana, and welcome to Season 2 of Her Gaunter Won't Smudge. Today is March 8th. It's a big day worldwide. And in Pakistan especially, where the Women's March, Aurat March, is in its 6th year. And to have Swineryy of all people as the first guest of Season 2 means so much to me. Why? Because Swineryy's characters have come to symbolize women's fight for autonomy. Take the Auntie Lena character, for example. She's constantly taking digs at her friend Shazia's daughter for wearing sleeveless kurtas, for studying abroad, for having male friends. In response to this slut-shaming, society's judgmental slut-shaming, women carry placards that declare, I am Shazia's daughter. So today, I talked to Swineryy about what that's like, being anonymous at Aurat March and seeing your characters in protest, why she's anonymous, and it's not what you think, who's the number one leaker in her life, who's foiling her anonymity, and of course, I ask about Blue Malvi Saab, that famous haram pig, and Shazia's daughter. You live in Pakistan, a Muslim majority country, and you named your Instagram account Swineryy. I mean, that's funny in itself. Can you share why you named the account Swineryy?
So the name Swineryy happened because the first post was of the pig. And I remember a friend of mine who I had recorded that first post in front of. He was like, you should put it up on Instagram. And I was like, should I make an account? Should I just put it up on my own account? And he was like, no, make an account. And then when I made one, I was like, what should we call it? I just called it Swineryy because it felt like, I thought of it as like a verb, like the act of being a swine, like you're just like swinerying or something. But it really wasn't that deep. It was like a verb or like maybe a place where all the swines could get together. And it's really funny because I get tagged all the time in like actual farm, like there's swineries that are like, for pigs, like actual pigs. Also, my mother, like one of her favorite things to say is that my brother and I, like she calls us swines and like there were a bunch of swines. So I think somewhere that was probably in the subconscious.
And are your parents funny? Or is this like 100% you?
No. My parents are funny. My dad is funny, but my mom is very funny. And actually, a lot of the women on my mom's side and a lot of the women on my dad's side have also been very funny. And they've been funny in a really like mean and sarcastic way, but also it's so brilliant that it's not even mean. It's like, I feel like sometimes I think I'm roasting my friends, but the way that my nani and her sisters could do it, like I could never, like the things they say about people. And actually it's the language that is used for the roasting. It's like really, really funny. So yeah, I have funny women on both sides.
That's great. So I read or I heard somewhere that you are a stand-up comic and that you've done shows, but you just end up getting on stage and sort of flying through your jokes, like you had some nerves. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I didn't know that people knew this, but I was a stand-up comic. I did it for a little while and I loved it. That was before Swineryy. So I really thought it was like my calling and like I found what I wanted to do in life and all of those things. But yeah, I used to be extremely nervous right before going on stage. And once I had the mic, it was okay. But I was really bad at like the discipline of it, which involves a lot of practicing your jokes, even with yourself, like out loud, memorizing them properly, not forgetting the next joke. But I think that comes with not just practicing by yourself, but actually doing a lot of stand-up and doing the jokes again and again and again. But I used to back out of being in the lineup. So which was obviously very annoying for people where I'd be like, put my name in the list, but then also don't really put it because I might not even show up. Or if I do show up, I would do it and then quickly like get out of there. Yeah, I don't know why I did that. I would like to actually go back to it.
You're now doing stand-up in front of like 200,000 people, but you still wish you were doing it in clubs.
No, for sure. I mean, stand-up is totally different. And also my stand-up was really different. It was not like Swineryy humor at all. It was all English, shorter jokes that were kind of dark and not vulgar. And stand-up is like a completely different thing where you're so engaged with obviously who's in front of you and you're getting immediate feedback and it's like impacting you in real life right there. You know, that's something that doesn't happen online. I feel like you're able to kind of do it more for yourself and then see what happens with the people who watch it.
So comedy is really tricky, right? In that people can get offended. And the next thing you know, in Pakistan, there's always the threat of like a blasphemy case could happen.
Oh, yeah.
Did you worry about that?
So I think there's like two kind of parts of me when I think about it. When I did stand up, I also remember doing some jokes where somebody could say that it was blasphemous. And I think it's much scarier to do in real life. But online, these thoughts come to me later. And I'm also still excited about it when I post it. And then sometimes in the past, there have been videos when somebody or the other feels like, okay, that's not okay. They're very offended and they have a lot of anger about it. I do still feel a bit safer because I'm anonymous. But at the same time, there have been times where I feel like, okay, maybe I need to take a video down. Also because I'm such a big fan of comedy, like growing up, all the comics I watched and all this offensive humor being offensive to the point where it needs to be shut down. Like all of these things I'm so against that it's almost like I don't want to be affected by any of this, even if somebody does say something. I mean, recently, I think in the last year, there was something going on online and somebody was making really hateful videos about something or the other. And I commented about that. It was completely an unrelated topic. But in response, they were kind of accusing me of blasphemy, which is it's like a death sentence to do that to someone in Pakistan, basically. And this person kind of knew who I was. So those are the times where I feel like, okay, this could actually snowball into something that nobody wants. And then I'll like lay low for a little bit. Even if you don't care about it, it does seep into your writing process because you know there's certain things that if I didn't live here, I wouldn't even be thinking about and just saying. But as much as I can, I don't want to think about who gets offended or who thinks it's like blasphemous or not.
So the haram pig.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the haram pig.
Sure.
Why I'm haram? Why I am haram? I'm fucking cute just because I'm eating my shit a little bit sometimes doesn't mean anything.
That character is just a classic, right? The idea that a pig would wonder, why am I haram? Why am I a sin?
Yeah.
Why am I not treated like other animals? And in one of your stories, you described yourself as a fempig-nest, that you've been slapped on both butt cheeks because you're a feminist and you're a pig.
Did I say that?
I think so.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I found it yesterday on your Instagram and I was dying.
Oh my God.
So are feminists seen as like the lowest of the low in Pakistan?
I think what's really frustrating is the instant dismissal of anybody who brings in this word. And I think that by this time, anyone with a brain should know that to just even have a debate, you can be disagreeing, but to hear a word and disregard a whole opinion, experience, or something that somebody's about to say, I guess, yeah, that would make it somebody's the lowest of the low because you won't even like hear them. You have, you know everything the minute somebody says that they're a feminist. It's like impossible to educate somebody who's that closed off to a conversation.
So what does feminism mean to you? Let me ask you that.
For me, it just means anybody who's standing up for any kind of justice and equality. And obviously it boils down oftentimes to things like gender and women's rights, for example, but it's not just that. So for me, it's like I'm a feminist, I'm a woman, but for me, it's important to take care of Baloch men, for example, because I'm much more privileged than them. So it doesn't just work for women. And I know that's like a really basic definition of feminism, but that's what it is to me. It's just like basic justice for everyone and basic rights. At this point, it's not even about equal to me anymore. It's like we're just talking about basic shit.
Swineryy mentioned Baloch men. Balochistan is one of Pakistan's 4 provinces. According to a non-profit organization called Voice for Baloch Missing Persons, approximately 7,000 cases of disappeared men have been registered since 2004. Anyone suspected of links to Baloch separatist groups risks being abducted by the state apparatus of Pakistan. Women, Pakistani women, march to find answers, find their loved ones. If you see pictures of the marches, there are thousands of women carrying photos of their missing loved ones. It always gets to me that, women do everything in society. I mean, whether it's Pakistani society, wherever it is, right? I mean, they're the moms, they feed the kids, they're the teachers. Of course, they birth the kids, all the kids. Then they're the doctors, they're the lawyers. Women are in every facet of life. And yet when women talk about the concept of autonomy, it's super controversial.
Yeah, it's insane. Even with stuff like Pakistan's Aurat March, where Mera Jism Meri Marzi became such a hugely criticized, and it became the whole face of the movement and all of that. And it's just like, the issue isn't even with that slogan. It's just that the people don't actually care about 90% of the women there that come with all sorts of issues, all sorts of demands. They're coming from all different backgrounds, some very underprivileged, and they've literally traveled to come to Karachi, for example, to ask for what they want. There's climate change activists there. There's indigenous fisher men and their, all their people. And there's so many things, but these people, they don't have an issue with the Mera Jism Meri Marzi slogan. It's just that they actually don't ever want to pull people up with them as they go up, and they don't actually care about these women, and they just don't care. So they need something to focus on, which is Mera Jism Meri Marzi. And then if you come to that, then I also feel like that's even more insane to have an issue with this line, right? In my head, I feel like then there should be a separate march with just this line, because how can you possibly have an issue with this? This is my physical body, right? I mean, that's just like a physical fact. Forget the social and the cultural stuff. Physically, this is my body. Nobody can argue with that. So what is even the issue? It's just kind of insane.
Yeah. Do you ever march in Aurat March?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I attend Aurat March and I support it. I support any kind of Aurat March happening anywhere, actually. Even the march is such a basic thing, nobody's breaking down buildings and setting things on fire. It's literally a march. If you can't, bear the fact that people doing that is such a sad kind of dark thought to me. Yeah.
You have so many characters and they each have their own personalities and character traits. What is your process? Do you write scripts for them?
I have not written anything down so far. When it comes to the videos that I put up that are not sponsored or have no, brand behind it, it's literally a thought that pops up in my head, and it's barely ever even a fully thought out thought. It's like an inkling or whatever, and then I'll just record it. Sometimes it's happened that I've recorded the whole thing, and right before I put it up, I watch it and another thought comes. So sometimes I might add that and then stitch it together because I don't want that thought to go. But so far, I've not ever sat and written down any of the videos, except for if it's a sponsored post, then I kind of have to adjust and tweak to whatever they want. I'm really used to the thought just coming and then me, just relying on that. But when there's a bigger gap between the thought coming, then it kind of gets very like frustrating and annoying because you don't know where it's coming from. It could just appear or just never come to you. So to be in the habit of writing and practicing that is totally necessary.
ये जो स्लीवलेस ट्रेंड है ना, स्लीवलेस ट्रेंड आजकल जो आया है, खुदा की कसम पूरे कॉम को ले डूबेगा ये स्लीवलेस। और आप कुछ बोल नहीं सकते, बोल के तो देखें। अरे जो लोग जहन्नुम से ना डरे वो हमसे क्या डरेंगे? करें आप स्लीवलेस, अब एक दफा अलाउ हो गया ना, अब नेक्स्ट क्या है? टॉपलेस तो आ चुका है, हमें क्या पता, हमने तो वो एक एड में ऐसा झलक दिख गई थी।
Blue Malvi Saab, what inspired him and why is he blue?
Honestly, I never have an answer for what inspired him or actually any of the characters. He's just a guy. I think it's because I live in Pakistan and I encounter a lot of people that say sometimes similar things, but they won't hear it the way that I hear it, whatever's coming from out of their mouth, or you'll see it on TV a lot. And I guess the inspiration is just like a collection of things. The way that somebody might say something and it strikes me as like ridiculous or just funny, but they're saying it very seriously. And I think that's kind of like who he is. And I also really love him in general because he is this religious kind of figure, but he's not just that. For example, also in the earlier videos, there was a little theme I had running where every other video he would like sing and then he would stop and then he would give an excuse for how that wasn't singing. That was actually like him checking the acoustics or like him making sure his throat was clear. And like there was a part of him that really loved music, for example, but he also really believed that it was wrong. So I like these little sides to him. I love to like humanize him also. Like I want people who are nothing like Blue Malvi Saab to relate to some of the stuff he says during COVID, where he just couldn't stand to be in his own house and be around his family. Yeah, that's who he is. He's just like a regular guy who's a little bit just insane, but also is strict and religious where you would never want to live with him. But you can kind of see him as like a human. And he's blue for no reason, by the way. He's just blue.
He's relatable. I mean, he's more curious than just like a fixed mindset, right?
Yeah. He says something and you think he's believing what he's saying in terms of like, you can't do this or this is haram or this is wrong. But usually at the end of it, he is kind of making an excuse for why he does it or he can do it or maybe it shouldn't be wrong. Like there's a lot of, he's confused, but he just masks it a lot.
And does Blue Malvi Saab think that feminists are all going to hell, or is he willing to see them as people too?
I think he's not that hardcore where he thinks everyone is going to go to hell. His main thing in life is that at the end of the day, when there's doomsday, he shouldn't be held accountable for anything. If feminism happens to be wrong at the end of the day, he doesn't want anything to do with that. He's not going to like support it. So he kind of is a feminist because he let you do what you want, but it's out of his own fear. Like he doesn't want to treat women badly because what if that means he won't get into heaven or whatever. So it's all about him. But by doing that, he kind of lets you do what you want. I mean, within reason. He's not going to like let you wear sleeveless, but you know, like just generally.
So tell us about the character who's always slut-shaming, you know, Shazia's daughter.
She was always like this Shazia's daughter, no? Like, I thought she was going to do her inter. Turns out she's done her whole intercourse.
I think with Leena Auntie, a lot of the times you do really see Leena Auntie in the flesh, like a lot. I think she's really funny. And I think most of the time her heart is in the right place. But I feel like she always needs a target. And that target is always somebody who is in competition or she thinks is in competition with her. And it's that plus the fact that there might be like things that she felt that she wanted to do as a young person and wasn't allowed to do those things. And it all manifests into this kind of salty attitude towards anybody who's currently able to exist as themselves. But at the same time, she's very privileged. So it's not like she's led some life where, oh my God, she wasn't allowed to do things. It's more like, again, similar trait to Blue Malvi Saab where it's okay for you to do many things. And it's not okay when somebody does it publicly and like proudly, because she'll do everything, but it'll be like, on the down low and nobody knows about it.
Right.
Yeah. And then obviously there's all the other stuff about how the obvious, when you're so privileged and the way that you would talk about somebody who isn't, or you think you're like superior because your tastes are like better in your opinion, and looking down on people. I think those are like things that are common, not just with Lena Auntie, but people in general. So that's just something on the side that she does. But she's entertaining.
Have you ever been treated like Shazia's daughter?
I definitely have, but it's never been something that's like, oh, like, look at her and she's like this, which I'm sure has happened while I'm not there. But I just know from the way people can talk about other people, for example. And I think that's what would, I'd say, like, inspired a character like her, is me observing the way people will talk about each other. It's not necessarily how I was made to feel about everything, but yeah, the judgment of others and like the way people talk about others, I think probably had inspired her.
And then you have this character, which is the mother-in-law, right?
Yeah.
So you have Auntie Lena, who's like always slut-shaming Shazia's daughter in some way, or talking about her. And then you have the mother-in-law, who does nothing but rip Auntie Lena to shreds for not being like the right kind of daughter-in-law. So why do you have these women who are like bitching about women? What's that about?
Also, another point about Lena Auntie is that she specifically doesn't take Shazia's daughter's name. Also because she wants to say daughter, but also because that's how much they might fear somebody who's different, is because they won't even say the name and make the person valid, validate them with their actual name. She's just like somebody's daughter. Like, she doesn't really matter. But actually she does matter, because all your conversations are about that person, right? But with the mother-in-law, I thought it would be really interesting to show how there's a cycle there of the mother-in-law being horrible to Lena Auntie. So we kind of get some context or like an insight into her personal life, but like she's constantly nagging. And then Lena Auntie's doing it to the generation that comes after her, but she's not realizing that she's literally in the same video sometimes, talking about her mother-in-law and then also doing the same thing. And that, I think, happens in real life. That's what people say. It's not just a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law thing, though. It happens just generally in relationships, that like whatever you've been through, you might end up projecting all of that onto somebody else. And I think that's what was happening there when I made the mother-in-law character.
And what was it like for you? I mean, like, I'd seen that in Aurat March, I think it was in 2020, maybe it's been in other years too, like women were carrying signs that said, I am Shazia's daughter. So what was that like for you?
Like, I know I'm like doing like a deep dive with you into understanding like my own characters and stuff, but it's never been with the intention of it being a lesson or something to teach people or like really like even a message. It's more like just something I'm creating, but it felt really amazing because I support Aurat March, and it just like it was really exciting to me that anybody would think of using something that I created to march and protest and use it for such a great cause like this. I think it was really humbling, where I was like, whoa, I didn't think I was doing anything that great.
So Swineryy, because you're anonymous, I obviously couldn't find anything about your personal life, but I thought, how do I get to know something about someone who's anonymous? So I went on a digital icebreaker website and I found some questions. The first of them being, what is your dream job?
My dream job is to act, actually. I would love to be an actor.
Another question. So when people ask you for advice, what is it typically about?
I actually think I'm really good at giving advice, not good at following advice. And I think lots of friends come to me for like their personal issues that they're having. And it can be relationships. Sometimes it's about work. Yeah, it's usually either work. And even in work, it's some kind of relationship question about like how to deal with somebody. I think how to deal with people or how to phrase things or how to go about fixing certain relationships or something like that is what usually comes.
All right. What does your family think you do for a living?
Oh, my family fully knows about Swineryy. and they're really great about it. But also I'm a writer otherwise, and I'm a voiceover artist otherwise. So they know like everything that I do. My mom is actually so bad at keeping me anonymous. She never understood the concept ever. Like from the start of it, she was like, if people like you, then why do you not want people to know? And she actually has told people. So sometimes people know, like her friends who have like sworn not to tell anyone, but then they'll talk to me about it. And then it's very awkward for me. So yeah, she has been the number one
leaker.
Yeah,
she's
leaker.
The number one leaker.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that, women, when they make some jokes, men get offended, right? And make cracks like women are not as funny as men. And maybe some women also feel that way. But to me, you're like proof positive what happens when we take the sex and the gender off the table.
Yeah.
And animoji cracks jokes, then the joke is all that people are focused on, right?
Yeah.
And you probably have men and women who follow you evenly. I mean, I went through the comments and I was like, this is so cool because it's everyone.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I am anonymous is also because people always assume it's the safety thing, but it wasn't the reason for me being anonymous at all. It wasn't a thought at the time at all. It was purely like a creative decision. And I wanted to have this world, like not have my face in it because I didn't feel like there was a place for me in it. It was just them and the joke. And seeing that people can enjoy it equally. I don't understand when people say like women aren't funny. It's because you're watching content from women that you might not relate to. That's not them not being funny. That's maybe you as a person who's not a woman not being able to relate to something very specific and then being like, that's not funny. Well, yeah, I mean, you don't have a vagina. I don't know. Like, whatever the joke is about. But I feel like despite that, if you made a Venn diagram of what's funny to men and women, the thing that's in common, I think that's a huge space because we're all human beings. And I feel like Swineryy in that, like I felt that this is something that men and women both get. Even if it's not funny or it's funny, it doesn't have to be funny, but even if it's not funny, they'll both get like why that's not funny. But it's not like this comedy is for women and this comedy is for men. Yeah, like they see people will understand. I think it's that kind of a thing, which is what you want as a comedian. I mean, no shame to like anybody who's doing like only female centric roles or comedy groups or anything. But as a comedian who has lived and breathed just watching stuff like stand up, like I don't personally find it appealing to do like women only kind of comedy. I want humor to be like genderless.
And it feels like your animoji characters reflect something, and I'm going to be deep. They reflect something about like all of humanity. I mean, Blue Maulvi Saab is not just a hardline cleric, right? He has other thoughts in his head. And we like him because he's a complicated character. Or like, I love the rabbit who doesn't like carrots and he wants to eat nihari.
Yeah.
And, it's this feeling that what's the point of judging any book by its cover? Like even Auntie Lena, who is weirdly trapped in her own vortex of shame and blame. So everyone, like also animals, have a humanity to them. And I want to thank you for that.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me, and I had a great time.
Imagine creating hugely popular characters and people are protesting on the streets, carrying posters, turning your characters into symbols of resistance. And no one knows who you are. It's a very quiet, celebratory party. So I want to say very loudly, thank you, Swineryy, for giving us Shazia's daughter. Like so many Pakistani women on the streets today on March 8th, I am Shazia's daughter. If you want to support Aurat March, please check out our Instagram page for a donations post. Remember, Aurat March is way more than March 8th. To my diaspora sisters, put your money to work and give generously. Thanks for listening to Her Kanto Won't Smudge. I'm your host, Shana. If you want to get in touch with us and rage or have a good cry or just tell us what you're thinking, look for our webpage, because we have one now, or find us on Instagram. Until next week.